So today, I wanted to talk a little bit about forgiveness. And this is not super serious, like you've done something wrong that you need to beg for forgiveness for. It's actually a much different energy and idea around forgiveness. So you are creating your experience, and you create everything that you experience. But obviously, we have these areas where we create things that we judge negatively. So we can forgive that from two angles. We can forgive ourselves for creating it in the first place, even though it wasn't wrong to create it in the first place. And we can forgive ourselves for judging it negatively after having created it. And if we will do both, a lot of the resistance to what we have created will dissipate. And there's many different areas that we could apply this sense of forgiveness. And again, I don't want to make this out like you need to forgive something that you've done wrong or forgive something that anybody else has done. It's not about anything being wrong in the first place. It's about freeing up the energy that you have used to create things and letting go of the judgment you have of what you've created. So, most of us have a complicated relationship with money. So could you forgive yourself for creating money the way that you have? And could you forgive yourself for judging what you've created money as the way that you have? If you would forgive yourself for creating money in the first place, and forgive yourself for judging money to be what you've decided it has been, do you get that a lot of what seems to exist for you with regards to money would be completely transformed pretty much instantaneously? So would you forgive yourself for creating money in the first place? Would you appreciate that you created money in the first place? And would you forgive yourself for judging that you've created money? And many of us spend a lot of our time preoccupied with judgment. So would you forgive yourself for creating judgment? And would you forgive yourself for judging? Look at everything you have ever judged, as far back as you can remember judging things. Would you let yourself off the hook for all of that? Would you appreciate that none of those judgments were ever actually true and never actually real, but you've been able to create an experience for yourself where that all feels intensely real when it's not? Would you forgive yourself for making that real? Would you forgive yourself for believing that it's real? And a lot of you have a really interesting relationship with your body. Somewhere you know you're creating your body, but you judge it really intensely. And you identify with your body in a very interesting way. You know, if you had a dog, you wouldn't look at the dog getting fat with nearly the same level of judgment as you look at your own body getting fat. But your body is not you. Your body is one of your creations. And it's this brilliant creation that allows you to experience everything that a body can experience. But your body's not you. Would you forgive yourself for believing your body is you? Would you forgive yourself for judging your body as if it is you? Would you forgive yourself for creating your body in a way that you can judge? You could create a body that is in no way susceptible to judgment. But somewhere you wanted to create a body that you can judge. And somewhere you want to keep judging it. You could just release all of your judgments of your body right now. Every single one of them. You could just release right now. But somewhere, we want to cling to the judgments we have of everything. Would you forgive yourself for clinging to judgment when you know you don't need it? And you pretend it makes you so miserable, but you hold on to it anyway, when you could just release it. So would you forgive yourself for every aspect of that? None of it is wrong. None of it's bad. It's an experience that you've been giving yourself. And if you will appreciate that experience and forgive yourself for misinterpreting that experience, it will change dynamically. In a sense, you don't need to forgive yourself because you haven't done anything wrong. But forgiveness can be greater than just, I did something wrong. Please don't punish me. That's not the kind of forgiveness that I'm talking about. The forgiveness that I'm talking about is admitting that you haven't fully appreciated what you've created. Admitting that you've judged what you created. And asking yourself to let go of all of that. You don't have to hold yourself accountable. You don't have to make yourself suffer in order to seek forgiveness. Forgiveness is something that you can do solely for yourself. You don't need to seek it from anybody else. And if you would allow yourself forgiveness, which is to admit that you're creating your entire experience and that you have misperceived a lot of it, and that you're willing to release those misperceptions that you've had about it, and admit that you wanted to have those misperceptions in the first place, things can get easier. Someone is asking if I would make a call about forgiveness. It's kind of what we're doing right now. But I forgive you for not being aware of that. So allow yourself to admit that you've created your body totally and completely. And forgive yourself for not fully appreciating that up until right now. You've created everything in your life. And I'm willing to bet you haven't fully appreciated that. I mean more depth. You guys are so funny. You guys crack me up. Because it's like, this is a level of depth that very few people have ever spoken about forgiveness with. And it's a totally different concept of forgiveness than you probably ever heard. and it's going deeper than you've probably ever gone with forgiveness, then you go, no, I want more depth. But that's the thing. There is a way we can expand into more, and we can receive more, and we can open up to more without looking at what is as if it's not enough. But most of us don't choose that option. Most of us look at what is as if it's nowhere near enough and we don't even have what we need. We're missing something and lacking something and without something. Can you forgive yourself for creating the illusion that there is anything that you lack? Can you appreciate that you as a being have abundance as your very nature, but you can make yourself believe that there's anything that you lack? And can you forgive yourself for believing that when you know it isn't true? There isn't anything that you lack, but it's very easy to make yourself believe that you lack everything. It's very easy not to appreciate that you are everything, that you have everything, that you can be everything, that everything exists for you. How often do you let yourself know that everything exists for you? Never. What do you think it exists for if it doesn't exist for you? It exists for you. Can you forgive yourself for going so long throughout your life not admitting that it exists for you? We live our lives from a sense of separation that is not real. You are the source of everything that gets created in your life. You are the source of all the energy that everything is. And you can make yourself believe that you are separate from all of that and that you need to seek out something more from somewhere else that you don't already have. But the whole time you're doing that, you're still the source of everything that exists. Can you forgive yourself for pretty much just playing a trick on yourself? Because it's not true, and you know it's not true. And you've created all these different things to suggest to you that there's a separation when there isn't. And sometimes it feels really intense, and sometimes you have all these thoughts that make you miserable, and all these different things are going on at the same time to convince you that this illusion of separation is incredibly real. But it's not. Can you forgive yourself for believing that separation is real when it's not real? The energy that is creating your body is creating everything else around you right now, and it's creating everything else in existence. And it exists inside of your consciousness. It is not outside of you in any way. There is no outside of you. But you can certainly make it appear that there are things outside of you, so you can have the experience of believing that. Would you forgive yourself for that? Would you appreciate that for what it is and release the idea that there's anything wrong with that? You are totally abundant beyond anything you can imagine. Do you let yourself know that, or do you look for what's missing? You are totally abundant beyond anything you can imagine. But how much of your day do you let yourself appreciate that you are totally abundant beyond anything you can imagine? Most of us look at what our life looks like visually and what appears to be going on in our lives and the thoughts we have about what our lives are. Most of your life is just what you think about what your life is. Most of your life is spent dwelling on what you think your life is that has almost nothing to do with what your life actually is. And would you forgive yourself for that? Would you appreciate, wow, it's really amazing that I can think and believe a bunch of things that just are in no way true. They don't have any basis in anything. And can you appreciate your ability to look at anything in your life and interpret it however you want? And can you appreciate that most of your interpretations might have been a little bit more negative than you would consciously choose if you were consciously choosing? And can you forgive yourself for that? A lot of self-help and spirituality and all these classes and modalities is like, okay, you've been feeling bad and thinking bad and everything's been bad for most of your life. Now let's make it good. And the way you get there is to undergo this discipline where you need to have more good than you have bad. Number one, none of that exists in the first place. But the essence of what you are is infinite and ever present and abundant beyond anything you can imagine. So you don't need to balance out your negative thoughts with positive thoughts or any of that stuff. But it would do us a lot of good to allow ourselves to admit that in certain areas we have a habit of looking at things in a way we say we don't want to look at things. Every single one of you, I'm sure, has at least one area where you're looking at something and you keep looking at it and you keep looking at it in the same way and going, I don't want this. I don't want this to be like this. I wish this would stop being like this. But you're the source of everything. So you going and looking at something and interpreting it the same way over and over and over again, whether this is a person, whether this is your bank account, whether this is a war or the world or a society or a culture or a religion, you looking at anything over and over and over again and choosing, whether you know you're choosing it or not, choosing to see the same thing over and over again ensures that it doesn't change. Because you're making the choice to see it the exact same way. You think about it the exact same way. Even the tools and the techniques and the modalities you use to change it arise from the initial thought that you have about it being a certain way. A lot of you do different healing techniques, but you're doing the healing technique from the idea that what you're trying to heal is what you're trying to heal. And it takes however long it takes to do that healing technique because you keep looking at it the same way. And that's why you even reach for that tool or that technique in the first place, because you go, oh, well, this is still messed up. So what do I got to do to fix this? But the being that you are is beyond fixing and beyond problem solving and beyond any need for any of that. So can you forgive yourself for believing that there's anything there that you need to heal or you need to fix or you need to change? Because the more you choose that, the more it seems to exist for you that there's something wrong that you need to fix. If you had to guess, how much of these different things that you're trying to address are you very obviously holding on to really hard? Now, that's not immediately obvious because you've been holding on to these things for a really, really, really long time. But we're trying to address something and we're holding on to it so we can address it. If I was just sitting here with my hand like this, like, oh my God, my hand's in a fist, how do I fix this? And I was saying all these different things, doing affirmations. I had somebody wiggle their hands over my fist to try and get it to open, when it's really just up to me to just let go of my hand. But if you hold your hand in a fist for long enough, you're going to stop feeling that you're holding your hand in a fist. You're no longer going to have your attention on the fact that you're holding your hand that way. It's just going to seem like your hand is that way. So we forget that we're holding on to a lot of the stuff that we're holding on to, and we forget how easy it is to just let it go. Would you forgive yourself for creating all the different things that you've created to make that way? Would you appreciate it and forgive yourself for judging it? And that idea that we need to go deeper than that we need to do more than that you need a greater understanding in order to get rid of whatever it is you say you don't want. Do you understand how much you have to hold on to whatever it is you don't want to feel like you need deeper and more and greater? If you were walking outside and you got caught in the rain and your clothes got wet, you go home and throw them in the dryer or hang them out to dry or whatever. You wouldn't go, oh my God, I'm going to have to spend the rest of my life figuring out how to get these clothes dry. Because it's not that hard. And it's not that big of a deal. Your life is not contained in one pair of clothes you have being ruined. But that's the way most of us actually treat our lives, if you really look at it. We've got one thing that truthfully really doesn't matter nearly as much as we think it matters. And if anything happens to that one thing, our life is over. Whether it's your family, whether it's your bank account, whether it's your relationship, whatever it is, most of us have one thing or two things or a handful of things where we go, if this went away, my life would be over. But it's not. You're the source of your life. There is no thing in your life that is the source for your life in any way. You're the only reason any of that stuff is there in the first place. So would you forgive yourself for wanting to believe that anyone or anything else is in any way a source of anything for you? Money is not a source of anything for you. And when you hear that, it sounds great, and then there's some resistance to actually admitting that. But if you would actually admit it, everything you think money is would change. Money is not the source of anything. You're the source of money and everything else. If you would remind yourself of that as often as possible, that need to go and get money that you never seem to be able to figure out, would go away. But do you see, some of you don't actually want it to go away nearly as much as you think you do. So appreciate that. Oh, maybe if I really admit it, I've wanted to struggle with money. Maybe if I really am willing to admit it, I've actually wanted to have this life where it seems like money is a scarcity and money is unknowable and money is hard to get a hold of. Maybe I've really wanted that and chosen that and stuck with that and committed to that. You got to look when anybody tells you that money could be easier than you think it is. How committed are you to believing that it's difficult? Pretty committed. Would you forgive yourself for that when it's absolutely not real and not true? There is no difficulty in money whatsoever. It doesn't even exist in the first place. It truly doesn't exist in the first place. That's not a spiritual precept. That's not me being metaphysical. It truly doesn't exist in the first place. Money is an imaginary agreement that societies make so that people can have an easier time dealing with transactions. It's not actually real. The dollar in the United States used to be based on gold. Now it's not even based on that. And gold doesn't have any intrinsic value until somebody found some gold and said, hey, this is valuable because I decided it's valuable. It's not actually valuable. We all have just decided and agreed and committed to it being valuable. Would you rather keep making that commitment day in and day out? Or would you rather make a commitment to yourself? To forgiving yourself for all of these misperceptions you've ever had about anything, appreciating that you know everything, and you can still give yourself the experience of not knowing and misperceiving and misunderstanding and pretending to be lost and pretending to be confused and pretending to be clueless. Can you appreciate that you have the ability to twist yourself up like that? Can you admit you might have enjoyed twisting yourself up like that? And can you forgive yourself for choosing that over and over and over again while maintaining, no, I really want money, I really want to be happy, I really want a better relationship, I really want this, I really want that? Do you? Do you really want any of that stuff? Because if you really do, it's really easy to get. But you know you're not going to get it the way you've been going about trying to get it. You know that's not going to happen. Because you've been treating the entire world like it's up to the world what you get. What you get is not up to anyone but you. And if you would admit that you already have everything, there's nothing you need to get. Can I create a different experience for me by acknowledging and appreciating my current experience just once? Yes. But that's the thing. It's not a matter of can I, it's a matter of will I. Can you create a different experience for yourself just by appreciating the one you're currently having? Absolutely. But will you? Or are you going to decide that this experience that you're currently having is the way you've decided it is? See, I can tell what your question really is. You're trying to play a little trick here. You're not actually saying, can I create a different experience for me by truly appreciating the experience I'm currently having? You're just going, okay, if I say out loud that I appreciate what I'm currently experiencing, can I take a little shortcut to the new experience that I want to have? And even the answer to that question is yes. But you're not going to, because you're not appreciating the experience you're currently having for what it really is. You're misperceiving the experience that you're currently having as something completely different than what it is. With regards to money, any of you here who think you don't have enough money, any of you here who stress out about money or worry about money or freak out about money are completely misperceiving the experience that you're having with money. And if you would appreciate that truthfully and not try to trick your way through this, if you would truly appreciate, okay, I'm infinite, I'm unlimited, I'm the source of money and everything else that exists. My natural state at rest without doing anything is total abundance. And I'm sitting here artificially creating all of this stress and anxiety and fear and doubt about something that I am the source of. It flows out of me. It does not come to me from other people. It does not, I don't attract it. I don't pull it into my world. I don't have to do any of that because I'm already the source of it. And no one else, nothing else is the source of it. Money's not the source of anything. If you'd really get that you are willfully misperceiving what you are creating, and if you would forgive yourself for willfully misperceiving what you are creating, it would be a different experience. You don't have to change it by doing this like it's a tool or a technique or a healing. You don't have to do that. For you to actually admit what is actually going on and what you're actually creating would be a different experience than the one you're having where you're pretending that it's all happening to you and you don't know how and the whole thing is freaking you out. That would be a different experience. You don't have to attract a different experience. You don't have to affirm a different experience. You don't have to figure out what to do to get a different experience. If you would admit that the experience you're currently having is not the experience you thought it was, that would be a different experience. And if you would admit, okay, I'm not having the experience I think I'm having, but I keep sitting here choosing to think about it the same way, to feel the same things about it, to freak out about it, to have all these different emotions about this experience that I believe is a certain way, that isn't actually that way. None of what I think about this experience I'm having is actually true. It would be a different experience, top to bottom. Because really all you want is not more money. All you want is not more friends and a right relationship with the right perfect person. What you want is not more travel. What you want is not a bigger house and more cars and more shit in your life. That is not what you actually want. What you actually want is to feel better. What you actually want is to think about your life in a way that feels better to you. That's all you really want. All you really want is to think about your life in a way that feels better to you. And you think that, okay, well, if I had more money, I'd probably feel better. If I had the perfect relationship, I'd probably feel better. If I traveled more, I'd probably feel better. But those things don't ever arrive. At least not to the extent that you want them to. And when they do arrive, you go, oh, this is great, but let's go deeper. But do you ever actually go deeper? Because the money and the relationship and the vacation and the house and the cars are not the source of you and how you feel. If that was really the solution, you wouldn't go to the doctor and get Lexapro or Zoloft or whatever for depression and anxiety. They just go, hey, put on a shiny t-shirt. You'll feel better. You have all had the experience of getting something you wanted that you thought was going to make you feel better, and it made you feel better for about 10 seconds, and then you went back to that habitual way of looking at your life, which is a total misperception. And what we do is try to fight this habitual choice to feel bad by doing things that will make us feel good. None of those things are the source of good feelings for you at all. If they were, you'd get one of them and be done. But you don't. You get one of them and you go, well, this didn't help. What do I need now? You don't need anything. There's not anything you're missing. And if you would admit that, totally, I have everything in existence. Everything in existence exists for you. Some guy with $1 billion posting on social media, look at my $1 billion, so you can feel like, I wish I had $1 billion. That exists solely for you. That's created by you for you to have that experience. Because you could just ignore that. You could just never see that. I can't tell you the number of things that I have read in the last couple of weeks where I go, where has this been my entire life? It wasn't there. Because I wasn't choosing it. I wasn't asking for it. I wasn't interested in it. Now that I am, it's here. But these things that I'm reading are not the source of anything. Because you can read a book and just go, no, this is all bullshit, and then throw it away. It's up to you. And that up to you is a lot easier than you think it is. So if you would really look at what you're experiencing right now and see what it really is, if you would release everything you believe and everything you think about what is right now, and you would just say, let me see what really is, you'd be having a different experience. So from that, you can actually come to understand that this negative, terrible experience that you're resisting and pushing away and trying to get rid of and doing anything you can to change, that's actually what you're choosing. Because what is not necessarily that. What is not anything like that. What is this incredible, ever-flowing existence that requires nothing of you and is just for you to receive from yourself. And nothing is separate from you. Nothing is against you. Everything is single-mindedly collaborating to give you the experience that you want to have. But if you really look at it, the experience that you've been choosing is believing a bunch of things that are not real, not true, that have nothing to do with who you are or what you are, so that you can have an experience of, what if I was miserable, even though I'm not miserable and I never have been and I never will be? What would it be like to pretend I'm miserable for 10 seconds or 10 minutes or 10 days or 10 weeks or 10 months or 10 years, even though I'm not miserable? Misery is a creation. Suffering is a creation. Anything that you experience is a creative expression. Would you forgive yourself for judging that as wrong? That alone would dramatically change whatever you're experiencing if you would release judging that it is wrong. And you would forgive yourself for judging that it is wrong. Because the number one thing that feels bad about what you're experiencing is how intensely you judge that it is bad. So if nothing about your experience changed, you just stopped judging it as bad, that would be a dramatically different experience. Dramatically. So you got to forgive yourself for willfully holding on to that judgment. Because, and this is how you know you're the source. Because if anybody else tells you there's nothing wrong with the life you've got, you don't believe them at all. It's only when you arrive at that for yourself that you'll actually let that feel true to you. It already is true, but you don't let it feel true. So, as often as you can, be present with how you're interpreting what you're experiencing. And forgive yourself for interpreting it and judging it that way. And appreciate that you've given yourself the ability to interpret and judge it that way. Because you could just be a bodiless, formless, shapeless, infinitely abundant, ever-present, all-knowing existence that doesn't have a body, that doesn't have time, that doesn't have space, that doesn't have anything other than just the awareness that it exists as everything. You could be that, but you choose to be this. Forgive yourself for judging the choice to be this. You're choosing to be this. And somewhere you know that. But you judge that so intensely that you pretend, I didn't choose to be this. I'm a victim of being this. You're not at all. You have total free will to be anything you want. You're choosing to be this. Forgive yourself for that. Appreciate that. If you would see the value in being what you are, solely because you choose to be what you are, and that's the only value it needs, you don't have to judge what you're choosing to be right now. Would you forgive yourself for giving yourself the idea that there is anything better or worse that you could be right now than what you are? There is nothing better than what you are right now. There is nothing worse than what you are right now. There are different experiences that you could have. They all exist inside of you. Everything you'd like to experience currently exists inside of you. When you do this little game of, okay, if I'm willing to admit that I created this experience, can I please have a different experience? You're refusing to admit that the experience you'd like to have exists inside of you, sitting right there on top of the experience you desperately don't want to have. It's all the same thing. It's all made up of the same stuff. It all already exists. It's all there for you to choose. When you go to a restaurant, you don't turn to the waiter and go, how do I choose? I don't know how to choose. You might say, hey, what's good here? And then the waiter tells you what to choose, but you still choose to have that or to not have that. You don't actually need anybody to explain to you how to choose. You know how to choose. You pretend you don't know how to choose because you're pretending that there are certain things on the menu that are not currently available. Everything on the menu is currently available and you can choose it. And it's that easy. But you think they ran out of money 6 months ago. You think the restaurant is all out of joy, so you can't choose that. You're the source of all of that. It all already exists inside of you. It's not out there for you to chase down and try to get. Actually letting yourself admit that would be a drastically different experience than the one you've been having. But see, this is where we cheat ourselves, because that's not good enough for us. To go from having this experience of pretending that we have no idea how anything works to admitting that we're actually creating everything and everything's contained inside of us and we can have any experience we want, that's not a different enough experience. The only way we know that's really true is if $1 million shows up now. You're cheating yourself by doing that. Because that is possible. But the $1 million is not what indicates to you that you have the power to create and experience anything. But that's what we do. We go, okay, wow, this all sounds great, but where's the $1 million? Where's the relationship? Where's the person? Where's the vacation? Those things are not actually the experience. You could have a greater feeling of appreciation and a greater feeling of oneness and a greater feeling of joy and greater thoughts about who you are and what you are and greater awareness just sitting in your room right now than you would on the perfect vacation, than you would with $1 million in your bank account, than you would in the perfect relationship. You could have the feelings and the thoughts associated with this amazing experience. It's the only thing you really want, and everything else pales in comparison, and life sucks until you have $1 million. You could have everything you think $1 million would give you right now, if you would look at what you really think $1 million is going to give you. You could have an experience beyond anything you can imagine right now if nothing about your physical existence changed. And if you would commit to having an experience beyond anything you can imagine, regardless of what your physical experience is, your physical experience would change into whatever you want. But until you admit that you have that power and that capacity, your physical experience is unlikely to ever be what you truly desire. You got to forgive yourself for how desperately you have believed that changing your physical existence would automatically make for a better experience. The thing that will make for a better experience is you committing to having a better experience regardless of what the physical existence looks like. Because every single one of you on here knows how to take any experience you could possibly imagine and turn it into hell. Most of you have a better physical existence than most of the people on the planet, but you know very expertly how to turn that into hell. You also know very expertly how to turn that into heaven on earth. Which would you rather choose? So, forgive yourself for pretending that you've been living in hell on earth for as long as you can remember. Because you know that's not true. You know that never was true. All those people that you've created in your life pretending that this is hell on earth. Forgive yourself for creating those people. Forgive those people for doing what you asked them to do. Forgive everyone and everything for being what you asked it to be. So that you can see what actually is. Because if you are willing to actually see that, it will be greater than anything you think, any of this stuff you think you want is going to give you. You can still have all that stuff, and it'll be a lot easier once you're seeing what actually is. Okay, everybody, that is all we got time for. Thank you all so much for joining me. It's the most people we've had in a while, and I'm pretty happy about that. So, I'll see you all again very soon. Thanks for coming. Hope it was of some value to you. And if not, doesn't matter to me because you're not the source of my life. But you get to be the source of your own life, so choose whatever you want. Okay? Bye.